To accuse of. He was accused of lying. To agree with. He agreed with me that this idea is the best. To amount to. The bill amounts to $100. To apologize to. The television announcer apologized to the audience for his mistake. To arrive at. We arrived at the hotel in the morning. To arrive in. She arrived in Toronto yesterday. To ask about. I asked about the company's job opening. To ask for. He asked me for some money. To attach to. I attached the copy of my passport to my letter. To balk at. Melissa balked at taking out the garbage. To beg for. The man begged for a second chance. To believe in. The majority of children believe in Santa Claus. To belong to. This oil company belongs to private owner. To benefit from. Aspiring musicians benefit from getting public exposure for their music. To bet on. I wouldn't bet on that happening. To borrow from. Can I borrow some money from you? To buy from. We bought some stocks from the broker. To call at. Does the train call at Bradford? To call for. I'll call for you tomorrow morning. To call on. The air hostess called on all passengers to fasten their seatbelts. To care about. She doesn't seem to care about going to college. To care for. I do not care for dogs. To carry on. They carried on the work that he had begun. To come from. Side comes from Japan. To come inside of. Sailors were very glad when they came inside of land. To come into a fortune. Mike came into a fortune when his uncle died. To come into force. This law came into force since the date of its publication. To comment on. I do not have any comments on his report. To compare with. You can compare it with older versions. To complain about. The boy complained about his early curfew. To concentrate on. He's trying to concentrate on his work. To congratulate on. Everybody congratulated her on her new appointment. To consist of. Pizza consists of bread, cheese, and tomato sauce. To convert into. This armchair can be converted into a bed. To deal in. This firm deals in oak furniture. To deal with. It is a pleasure to deal with people like you. To depart for. The train is departing for Washington. To depend on. The living conditions depend on room cost. To deprive of. You cannot deprive us of our right to the freedom of speech. To differ from. How does milk chocolate differ from white chocolate? To divide by. Divide this number by 2. To divide into. Could, please, you divide this cake into 6 pieces? To elaborate on. This paragraph elaborates on the previous one's claims. To end in. I have heard that many travels by plane end in disaster. To engage in. Morris likes to engage in political debates. To escape from. The prisoners escaped from their captors. To estimate. The cost of the movie was estimated at $3 million. To excel at. My 5-year-old niece already excels at math and science. To exchange for. Do you exchange dollars for euros here? To experiment on. The company offered assurances that it does not experiment on animals. To fight for. Many generations of people have fought for freedom. To fill up. They asked me to fill up a questionnaire. To fill with. All goods wagons of this train are filled with coal. To find out. How did you find out my telephone number? To focus on. I'm too tired to focus on this assignment. To forget about. I forgot about the wedding reception. To get into the habit. She got into the habit of smoking since her brother died. To get off. I need to get off at the next stop. To get on. How is she getting on? To get rid of. I can't get rid of this thought. To get up. Usually I get up at 7 o'clock. To give up. My father gave up smoking when I was born. To glance at. She glanced at him. To go on. Please go on telling this story, I am listening. To go over. I know that the leader of this party is thinking of going over to the other party. To happen to. What has happened to her? To hear about. Did you hear about the renovation project? To hear of. Have you heard of the news yet? To hint at. He hinted at some facts. To hope for. I am hoping for the best. To hope for. The family is hoping for a miracle. To include in. You better include all club members in your invitation list. To increase by. Last year we increased the output by 20%. To inform of. Could you please inform me of all changes in the tax law? To insist on. She insisted on joining us. To insure something with. You can insure your car with any company, but only our company is so reliable. To invest in. Now is the time to invest in as many companies as possible. To joke about. Kim often jokes about her high-pitched voice. To judge by. Do not judge him by appearance. To judge from. He judged so from my words. To knock at. Your friend did not knock at the door. To know about. What do you know about physics? To laugh about. Their friends laughed about their terrible luck. To laugh at. The boy couldn't stop laughing at Isabella's joke. To learn about. Michelle is learning about film production. To leave for. I am leaving for New York tomorrow. To lie down. Do not lie down on the ground, it is cold. To listen to. Stop talking and listen to me. To live in. Haley lives in Seattle. To long for. The man longed for the days of his youth. To look at. Look at the whiteboard, please. To look for. He is looking for his glasses. To look into. Inquire into. We will look into this hypothesis. To look on. He didn't help me to move the boxes, he was just looking on. To look up. If you do not know the meaning of the word, you can look it up in the dictionary. To make from. This salad is made from tomatoes, cucumbers, and some oil. To make out. He could not make out the main idea of this article on philosophy. To make up. Kids had to make up a sentence out of 6 words. To make up for. It is hard to make up for lost time. To make use of. How do you make use of old newspapers? To mean by. What do you mean by that? To move on. Let us move to the next chapter. To nod at. She nodded at her coworkers. To object to. Employees strongly object to new taxes. To open an account with. He opened an international account with Alpha Bank. To operate on. Aspiring surgeons learn how to operate on people. To participate in. What sports did you participate in as a kid? To pay attention to. He did not pay attention to it at all. To pay for. Who's going to pay for these tickets? To pick up. John picked up a pencil from the floor. To plan on. Do you plan on attending the concert tomorrow? To point out. He pointed me out my mistakes in test. To prefer to. I prefer skiing to skating. To prepare for. John is preparing for the meeting tomorrow. To prevent from. Something prevented him from coming. To provide for. Parents are expected to provide for their children. To put off. Let's put it off till next meeting. To put on. I advise you to put on your hat. It is windy outside. To recover from. It took him a long time to recover from the illness. To refer to. The critic refers to the author's biography. To refrain from. Could you please refrain from shouting? To rejoice at. They rejoiced at his success. To rely on. You can always rely on him. I work with him for 20 years. To remind of. He reminded me of my promise. To remind of somebody, something. She reminds me of my cousin very much. To reply to. The same day I replied to her letter. To resign from. The CEO resigned from her position after 25 years with the company. To result in. All my efforts didn't result in anything. To retire from. He retired from his job last year. To ring up. Call me up when you are ready. To run over. Slow down, you may run over a deer. To sail for. This boat sails for Ben Island. To save from. It was hard to save the plants from drying. To search for. Did you search for the missing piece yet? To seem to. It seems to me it is going to rain. To set off. He set off for work about 2 hours ago. To set out. We set out at 5 o'clock in the morning. To shout at. Do not shout at me. To sit down. Please sit down. To smile at. My son smiles at me every time I walk through the door. To speak of. We have been speaking of our plans for future. To speak to talk to. His mother is going to talk to his teacher. To specialize in. English majors can choose to specialize in creative writing or literature. To spend on. Oxford students spend lots of money on education. To stand up. In Russian school, pupils usually stand up when a teacher enters the class. To stare at. It's uncomfortable when people stare at you. To start for. Yesterday night they started for Prague. To start with. I shouldn't have started with a salad. To subscribe to. I subscribe to university newsletter. It would be sent to my email. To succeed in. She really succeeded in restaurant business. To suffer from. During the war, lots of people suffered from starvation. To supply with. We have made an agreement with this company to supply us with raw materials. To take by. She took a child by arm and crossed the road. To take advantage of. We have decided to take advantage of the discount. To take care of. Who will take care of your goldfish while you're away? To take into account. You have to take into consideration this fact. To take off. Take off your boots, please. To take part in. I usually take part in all university activities. To talk about. What are you talking about? To talk over. He talked her over to come. To telephone to. She telephoned the message to you. To the west of. The amusement park is situated to the south of Hollywood. To think about. We'll need to think about hiring some more staff. To think of. What are you thinking of? To think over. I need to think over your proposal. To throw at. Do not throw stones at birds. To translate from. Are you able to translate the text from French to Russian and vice versa? To translate into. I need to translate this article into English. To tremble with. The vagabond was shaking with cold. To turn into. If you do not put milk into the refrigerator, it would turn into clabber. To value at. The picture values at 3 million rubles. To wait for. I had been waiting for you for 3 hours. To wake up. It is always difficult to wake him up in the morning. To wish for. Some people wish for nothing but fame. To wonder at. He did not wonder at that. To work at. I am working at new project. To work for. She works for the government. To work out. A new plan for the firm development has been worked out. To worry about. So many adults worry about getting older. To write about. Dean wrote about his day in his journal. To write down. Write down your homework. To be afraid of. My son is afraid of darkness. To be angry with. Your mom is angry with me. To be ashamed of. Aren't you ashamed of your words? To be engaged in. Have you ever been engaged in drug selling? To be fond of. I am fond of rock music. To be full of. She's full of happiness. To be in. Is Miss Smith in? To be in love. When I was 16, I was in love with our literature teacher. To be in need. People in the disaster area are in need of fresh water. To be in need of. Her family is very poor. They are in need of everything. To be in the habit. She in the habit of going to bed very late. To be independent of. Teenagers tend to be independent of their parents. To be interested in. She interested in theater life. To be late for. She is always late for classes. To be of importance. It is a question of great importance to us. To be of interest. His opinion is of no interest to me. To be of value. This picture is of great value. To be off. She had to be off. To be out. She is out. To be proud of. I am proud of my country. To be sure of. Are you sure of him? To be surprised at. I was surprised at his words. To be worthy of. This movie is worthy of seeing.